Hello. It's been a month since the last sci-fi review that I did involving works that are both Hugo and Nebula awardees, right? The reason is that I got busy. I had to move temporarily to South Africa for my postdoc. But now that we're here, we will continue the review. Okay, and so today we are reviewing a short story by Greg Bear called Tangents, and this short story is supposed to be dedicated to the great mathematician Alan Turing, who of course is known for the Turing machine and the Turing test and so on. And uh, the story is a bit soft on science fiction, but the attempt is there. So basically, it's about the relationship of the mathematician. I think his name was Peter Toothy, and this kid named Pal, who can actually detect or who can actually see the fourth dimension, right? Peter Toothy, just like Alan Turing, is he's like sort of in hiding because during those times when you are a homosexual, which is a very sad thing, you have to like undergo some sort of therapy to like cure you of your homosexuality. And in fact, tragically, that's what happened to Alan Turing in real life. Okay, but here, this guy Peter Toothy, he was like in hiding, but he has a contact with someone who is working in the I think government or the academe, named an asshole named Hookroom, and Hookroom is sort of trying to blackmail Peter Toothy. So he would like give Peter Toothy some like hard problems in mathematics. Peter would solve it for him, and then Hookroom would claim it for himself, and so on. And Peter Toothy has a sort of in what they call this a colleague, which is a girl, but of course they're best of friends, but there's nothing between them because of course Peter's a homosexual, so her name is Lauren, and then one day Peter was introduced to this guy Pal, okay, the kid, and Pal is basically he is into music, but uh, Peter tried his best to introduce Paul into the fascinating world of mathematics. And then, one of those days when he was like explaining to him, uh, one of those days he began explaining the fourth dimension. And then it was like something very familiar to Paul, right? Paul knows what he was talking about. He can like conceive it. He can sort of like feel the presence of the fourth dimension. So just like we are confined to the three dimension. Just like if you heard of the a satire by Edwin Abbott known as Flatland. So those guys are like confined in the two dimensions. They have no they can study 3D, but they have no way to conceive of what 3D is. It's impossible for them to imagine. So like us, it's different from like something that is non-existent. For example, a pink dragon. So we know that doesn't exist, but it's something that we can imagine, we can conceive, right? Like a blue unicorn. It's something that we can picture in our mind. Four dimension is like so you have 3D, forward, backward, up, down, left, right. Imagine a dimension perpendicular or orthogonal to all of those. It's inconceivable, right? But mathematics has these tools that allows us to take a glimpse in that dimension. So, for example, in the short story, they explained how, for example, 2D people, how they would conceive, for example, if a 3D shape, let's say a sphere, intersects a 2D plane. So what happens is people in the flatland would see a point, okay, and then that point will like uh, expand into a circle until it will be equal to the diameter of the sphere that is intersecting with, and then after reaching that diameter, it shrinks again, and then it becomes a point, and then it disappears. So Peter Toothy explained to Pal that if a four-dimensional sphere, for example, would intersect a three-dimensional space, then we would see a point that will like expand into a sphere, and it will shrink again and then vanish from existence. So it's how four-dimensional, at least the projection of four dimensions would look like to us. Okay, And so suddenly when Peter Toothy knew, he felt that uh, Pal had this inkling of what four dimension is. What they did is they tried to like invite four-dimensional creatures into the three dimension, like sort of make their presence felt. Okay, and so Pal began composing songs that is sort of he said that these guys, these beings from the four dimensions could hear his music. Okay, and when he began doing that, but then suddenly what happens was that the four-dimensional creatures became fond of him. He was taken away. Okay, and it really provided a tense moment in the story because now when uh, the kid Pal was taken, so he was gone. So like Peter Toothy during that time, he was a homosexual. Lauren was like afraid that you know, police would go to him and he would be convicted of like I don't know abusing the kid because he was not there anymore. And in fact, Peter Toothy was willing to give himself up if they will undergo some questionings because what happens is that when he got so busy in this four-dimensional talk with Pal, he forgot his responsibilities to this guy Hookroom, who was trying to blackmail him, was trying to protect his identity. And so one day he wasn't able to deliver. Hookroom was like he was like, I'm gonna send the authorities to your place. And so they went there and you know they went there under the guise of they've heard of the missing kid Pal, and then they were like, "Oh, well, what did you do to the child? Like, you're a homosexual. What did you do something to him?" And so on. Okay, and then in the middle of that, when he was like being, when he was supposed to be captured by the authorities, suddenly Pal appeared, the child, and then he was like, Toothy was like, "Hey, Toothy, are you willing to like to come with me and live in the with the four-dimensional beings?" And then um, Peter Toothy looked at Lauren, sort of like there's like an understanding between them, and he was like, in his mind, he was like, I think that's where I belong. I don't belong in this place. People don't want me. I'm a homosexual, and then he went with Pal to the four dimension. Okay, and so like I said, the story is weak on the science. Like they did not expand on like how the projection of non-dimensional, non-3D, non-spherical 3Ds would uh, non-spherical four-dimensional objects would look like when it like intersects with the 3D plane and so on. So a very simple example, but the point was Greg Bear was trying um, to show that he was trying to what they call this reflect on the very dark times when Alan Turing was around. He contributed a lot of things, but then the British government still turned their back on him, and you know it's like he didn't belong. He underwent treatment, and Greg Bear in this fictional universe, in order to sort of I don't know, redeem in a way Alan Turing, he made this character that's like him, who did not undergo the same ending that Alan Turing did. Okay, so sort of like it's sort of a quaint, sad story, but I think it has a happy ending. Okay, so and of course I get why it has the Hugo and Nebula. It's really the parallelism and then the different ending with the life of Alan Turing and Peter Toothy. It was really done. It was written very well. So yeah, so that's the short story known as Tangents. So up next, there are only a very few short stories left that are both Hugo and Nebula. And so after those, I think I'm gonna be free in like choosing sci-fi stories that I want to review. Okay, but we're not yet done with the joint Hugo and Nebula. So I think the next one would be Harlan Ellison's Repent Harley Quinn said a Tic Tac Man. So I'll see, or maybe some other stories. But I think there's still like three or two more stories that we're gonna review before I can freely choose sci-fi short stories to review. Okay, so until next time, I hope you can find a. Unfortunately, usually I give a link to the short stories that I reviewed. This one I can't find any, so I don't know. Try hunting it for yourself. It's really a fascinating story about a very nice tribute to the great mathematician Alan Turing. Okay, so until next time, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you try and look for the short story and read it for yourself. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.